Today I'm thinking about desire as it relates to what it means to be in a human body. I related to my desires and my capacity to satiate them in my youth far differently than I relate to it now. I remember associating with the adults in my world with the assumption that they had figured out how to satiate their desires, and with the implied assumption that I could rely on that one day I would figure it out too. And thank goodness for that, because that in a way was at the time what drove me forward. I began to really examine where the rubber meets the road between insatiability and satiability, and look at the different variables that were at play at the moment of satiability. We're facing the fact that our bodies are sensitive, and this sensitivity is the very thing that allows us to feel pleasure. It's also the very thing that allows us to feel pain. In addition to that, the pleasures that come with meeting our desires are only possible because we have the desires to begin with. We have the impulses that are leading us to fulfill our hungers of many, many sorts. Collapsing into the reality of what it means to be in human form, to me, means that I accept what is happening in my human form. I accept that I have desires. I accept that my satiability is not the locus of my focus. I am entertained by the thought that I experience satiability at moments, pulses in my music, and that I experience insatiability at moments, and all that each of those imply, as they so often imply one another. We can maneuver into a space where we understand, we see what the human condition is. We recollect that from our source of energy, we decided to come into these finite forms and be determined by the laws of our human condition, and that we are driven forward by our desires so that we can find out what they mean. This is the play of God dancing with God. This is the play of movement away from the whole into our ego structures, the Maya illusion that we are separate, in order that we can work with the cards we were dealt in that finite form to uncover that we are indeed not separate, that these ego constructs do not separate us, as our ego constructs may so wish that we would believe that they do. In this is a radical acceptance of everything that is involved in being in a human form, including the hunger, including the satisfaction, and all that's implied when we move beyond the hungers and the satisfaction about the entertaining value, the relaxing value of what is beyond the human form when we recollect that seat of consciousness that connects us to our origin of energy, from which we can watch all of the different elements of the human form play across our screen, play within our bodies, striking their relationship with our physiology and our hormonal structure and our diaphragm and our tummies and our neurology, such that we dance and we continue to dance, and we pulse back and forth between the desires and the satiability. Without further ado, I'll move on toward my readings. Today I'm reading from Ram Dass, Paths to God. Enjoy.
Page 157. Start to relate to your desires as something you can scrutinize, rather than as things that totally suck you in all the time, things that consume you. Get into a friendly relationship with your desires. Play with them, instead of being driven by them all the time. Desires get to be fun, really, once we're observing them, instead of mechanically reacting to them. The whole game of renunciation and purification is an experiment in how quickly we can extricate ourselves from being attached to our desire systems. Notice that it isn't a question of getting rid of desires. That's a misunderstanding. Trust me, the desires will stay around. We're just loosening their hold on us, getting clear enough of them so we can see them in some sort of context. Page 196. Channel 1, Physical Identity. Channel 2, Emotional Identity. Channel 3, Astral Identity. If we give the channel selector one more flip, we come to what we could call the soul level. And now what we're seeing when we look at another person is another soul looking back at us. We look in another's eyes and we see another being, just like us. Are you in there? I'm in here. Far out. We can still see the packaging that includes the body, the personality, the astrological sign, all the individual differences. There's still somebody separate from me in there, but the individual differences now are more like veils, like packaging for the real product. Here we are. We are two beings. We have our individual characteristics, and we are also just alike. Page 200. See, the predicament with all our judging is this. Everybody is always doing the best they can. Maharaji kept saying to me, Ram Dass, don't you see it's all perfect? Everyone is perfect, exactly as they are. There are all these gunas, these strands of the universe, weaving back and forth, interacting with one another. And in each individual manifestation, those strands have woven themselves together in a unique way so as to produce yet another perfect statement of the unstatable. So someone comes to you and she's hung up, uptight, and angry. You see the perfection in that. You say, far out. There's God as an angry person. You weird manifestation of God, you. You give each incarnation the space to manifest exactly as it needs to manifest. I'm on page 225, and this is in reference to Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of dying from denial to acceptance. Acceptance isn't the end point of the possibilities. Those 5 stages are all psychological states we go through when we're facing death. And that's still shy of a spiritual point of view. Acceptance can be merely saying, okay, I'm going to die, right? And in that are still the subtle clingings attached to the thought, I am going to die. A spiritual perspective takes us beyond acceptance. For someone on a spiritual path, death is a doorway, an opportunity, and all our practices are done to prepare us for that moment. Page 240. We keep thinking we have to get behind ourselves and push, when all the time we are actually being propelled full speed ahead. When we see that, we recognize that sadhana isn't something we do to get ourselves somewhere. It's something we do to get ourselves out of the way, so we can stop being obstacles to the process. Page 245. Every now and then we get a glimpse behind the scenes, and we see our own lives as stories running their course. All of the choices and decisions and crises, most of the time we're seeing them all as, what should I do next? But then we turn the page, and all of it was already written. It's like a murder mystery, where you are the butler walking toward the pantry on page 42. but you're also the person who's reading the story and who's read it all before, it seems, so that somehow you already know what's going to happen when the butler reaches the pantry. Finally, when you're ready, when the moment is right, you recognize that you are the author as well.